Welcome to your Nevada Trucking Association podcast. I am Paul Enos, CEO of the Nevada Trucking Association, and very happy to introduce one of our members here today, a friend, somebody who has been a truck driver, then was in law enforcement, which is where I met him, and is now the manager of safety for Oak Harbor Freight Lines. Tom Mueller. Tom, how are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for coming on. Just wanted to talk about some of the challenges that you see on the safety side from your company, but let's talk a little bit about Oak Harbor. You're based here in Reno. Oak Harbor runs, mainly in the West.
Correct. We are a 5-state LTL carrier. We've got approximately 34 terminals between the 5 states, which would be Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Nevada. Is that it? Was that in California?
California. Don't forget California.
Yeah, California. Who can forget California?
Well, let's talk about that a little bit since we brought it up. I was going to wait a little bit, but I think that's a perfect hook. Let's talk about doing business in California. What kind of difficulty do you have operating in the Golden State compared to the rest of the places where you run?
It is a challenge. We've got both additional layers of labor laws that the surrounding states don't have. We've got certain regulatory compliance and hazardous material concerns that the other states don't have. And additionally, you have the localized issues, hazardous material compliance, stormwater protection, a bunch of other issues that we have to deal with at each specific terminal, whereas, again, the surrounding states, we have certain regulations, but not nearly the depth that California does.
Piece rate pay, I know that's,
That's the payroll side. So in addition to mandatory breaks, excessive amount of breaks that California mandates are California-based drivers taking, you've got the entire payroll revision that they forced on the industry about 2 years ago, which is being challenged by several carriers, as well as I believe there could be some federal legislation that could streamline it.
So as somebody who's seen it from all sides, what do you think the best course of action would be to take when you talk about, maybe amending some of those laws that they have in our neighbors to the west?
In California, allow the companies to pay in the manners that they have for years that really the drivers had no complaints on. I'm not sure what the nexus for some of this industry piece rate pay was, but I can pretty much assure you the LTL industry has always compensated the drivers in a fair and adequate manner.
Well, I know going over Donner, is definitely a challenge in the wintertime. So what are some of those real world impacts that your drivers are seeing, going from Nevada to California?
Well, as you know, Donner is under the control of Caltrans, and we're subject to the whim and will of them when it comes to inclement weather. Being a doubles carrier, we pulling 2 28-foot trailers, we've had a lot of issues the last 2 years with regards to open enclosures of the road. At times, our trailers have been specifically prohibited while other commercial vehicles have been allowed. It's been a great challenge. Let's be quite honest, Donner cannot sustain the type of traffic it has today. You throw all the personal vehicles on with all the commercial traffic, and a snowstorm, and it's just a recipe for disaster. It is certainly not like it was when I was running Donner in 1987. The traffic flow, the volume of people, how the winters, how they're handled, things have changed dramatically.
So let's talk about how you deal with that in light of the differing laws you have in California, based on the different meal and rest break. What kind of impact does that have on your driver?
The payroll aspect, which was the AB 1513 bill, we as a company adopted a 5-state policy. We converted our entire payroll system to match what California asked.
Yeah, I know a lot of companies, a lot of trucking companies are doing that. They're saying, hey, we're going to go with whatever the worst is, just to have some administrative ease. But it seems like you have Washington State and California and Seattle and San Francisco, fighting over who's going to have the most stringent laws on companies.
Some of our competitors they went what's called the hourly rate. They basically, all their over-the-road drivers are now hourly paid. We did some modifications to our current payroll system to adapt to the needs of California, but as I said, in lieu of just focusing on the California drivers, we made it blanket. So we did all 5 states, so the payroll system is the same for all 5. Obviously, there was a simplicity and an administrative reason for us doing that.
Well, how about meal and rest break?
The meal and rest break, well, for the local drivers that operate under the 12-hour rule in California, they fall under that second lunch after 10, mandatory after 12. The over-the-road drivers predominantly fall under the DOT rule, which, as we know, is the 30 minutes of uninterrupted off-duty time prior to an 8th hour. So that's how the drivers in the states are, the over-the-road drivers are held to that standard. The under 12 hours are exempt from that, so then they fall to whatever the specific state is.
So where would you like to see FMCSA take a look at some flexibility? And I mean, I think they've done a fantastic job so far in some of the things they've looked at that may not have an impact on your company, but definitely do on smaller companies, on owner-operators in terms of the personal conveyance rules. I know they have new rules on agricultural commodities. So, there is a want on behalf of the new administration and the new folks at FMCSA to listen to our industry and try to make some changes based on those real world impacts. So what are some of those changes and flexibility that you'd like to see?
The biggest one that comes to mind that I think could be fairly applied would be, and another exemption, I hate to use that because it seems like they're giving everything exemptions, but with regards to the 30-minute rule is, right now, currently, if you're operating under 12 hours or 100 air miles, you are exempt. I would like to see that exemption expand to, regardless of hours worked or miles driven, a simple caveat of, if you start at your home terminal and you finish at your home terminal, you are exempt from the 30-minute rule. That would help out a lot. We've got a lot.
Now that's not going to be going over the 14 hours on duty time, or okay.
Nothing to do, no modification to the current hours of service standards. It's just exempting that 30-minute lunch break. And Mike, I can only speak for myself, but I think I have a pretty good knowledge of my competitors. Most of our drivers are given anywhere from an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 15 minutes worth of breaks per shift. Prior to the introduction of that law, we did not enforce it. Our drivers knew what they had available. They were eligible to take it whenever they want, when they wanted, where they wanted, and a lot of the guys wanted to. A lot of the guys did not. And most of the drivers that didn't take their breaks or lunches would tell you they didn't go hungry and they didn't go thirsty. Go figure how they're able to accomplish that without having to take a break. The lunch, it would be beneficial to us. I think that 30-minute lunch rule it hurts us. It hurts the drivers, especially running Donner. As we talked about earlier, a driver could leave Reno. I'm going to be facetious. It could be sunny and shiny, and goes over Donner over to Sacramento and turns and begins his trip back to Reno, and it is snowing all over Donner. And guess what? By the time he's through chaining and drives maybe a mile or two, his 8th hour is coming up, so he's got to take a lunch now. We really don't want drivers having to take lunches in inclement weather. You don't want them, especially on Donner, pulling onto an off-ramp, sitting there for 30 minutes doing nothing except looking at his watch because he wants to get going. He wants to get over that pass because, as we mentioned earlier, the probability they're shutting Donner a lot now to commercial vehicles, even drivers that get stuck up there or up there. They end up getting stuck. That 30 minutes is not time well spent.
So is truck parking an issue for your folks, trying to find that place to safely pull over and park to take that lunch break?
I would have to think it is, but in the regards of how the LTL industry works, we have terminal networks. A lot of times drivers take their breaks at terminals. For example, a Reno driver that goes over Donner can take a break at 5 different terminals. So for us, I don't think it is per se. I believe probably for the long haul industry or some of the other elements of the industry, yeah, it's probably very problematic.
So Tom, one of your companies was, one of the early adopters for electronic logging devices. How have your drivers accepted it? Is it something that has been a positive thing for your company, or have you had some issues getting that driver to accept it and learn how to deal with the new hours of service? Well, the new, I guess, not hours of service rule, but the new way to track compliance.
Yeah. No, we really didn't have a problem. We did a fairly systematic rollout. We rolled out e-logs for us. We're still running the old AOBRD system, automatic onboard recording device. We rolled that out beginning in September of 15, and we're wrapped up by the November of 15. So we've got it. It's pretty much ingrained into our operations now. Again, in my company's situation, approximately 65% of our drivers are exempt from having to have e-logs, ergo their tractors are too when they're operating them.
So those are your local drivers. Those are the folks that are going, within that 100-mile radius,
Yes,
right? Okay.
correct. We as a fleet have our entire fleet is equipped with ELDs, but 65% of the drivers operating them do not need to be on ELD. So that element was never even an issue. The remaining 35%, which are our on-road drivers, there really hasn't been a problem. It's a fluid situation. There's constant dialogue. We're learning anomalies in the systems, or questions are asked. But for the most part, it's been accepted. The guys like it. It's less paperwork.
Tom, is there anything you see differently? Being, you've kind of been on all sides of it, from from a driver to law enforcement. And when you were in law enforcement, you were absolutely fantastic in terms of having that partnership with the Nevada Trucking Association, with the City of Reno. We were able to do some fairly innovative things at the time when CSA was rolled out, in terms of reaching out to those companies, seeing if we could bump that CSA score up by doing some inspections,
proactive
and making
inspections,
making sure that everybody knew what the new rules were back then. But is there anything you see differently in all of these different roles that you've had, from driver to law enforcement to now safety manager?
Well, the big thing right now facing, and it's not just the LTL industry, it's the trucking industry, is obviously the driver shortage. The regulatory side is relatively flat. There haven't been a whole lot of major changes, at least from a DOT standpoint, over the last several years. The 30-minute rule and a couple of other issues we've talked about, but things are pretty constant there. And then you get down into the micromanaging into the specific states you operate within. Obviously, California.
Which we talked about.
Well, we did. Probably the biggest thing would be a uniformity of rules that apply to what we're doing in Nevada into California and Oregon. That would be nice to see. Another benefit would possibly be uniformity of LCV rules, which I know is something that's been talked about for years.
Big fight. I mean, we see it.
We do all the
with
time.
the battle with twin 33s. It's a battle within the industry.
Yes, there is, and I would like to see at least we're a triples trailer operator. We operate in 4 states that operate triples. 3 of the states are relatively in line with each other. The 4th state has their own set of rules, which we do follow, but it causes some operational issues at times.
So Nevada, Idaho, Utah, we're all pretty much in line.
Yes,
Oregon's
the one that wants
outlier.
to be a little different on that. It's not dramatic, but it's still enough that we have to watch ourselves when operating triples in that environment.
So see, I love triples. I love longer combination vehicles. I know that's not always a popular thing, especially when I'm talking to my colleagues in the South. How much harder is it to find that person who has that triples endorsement or that LCV endorsement, and what do you do to try to keep them?
Oh, I'd say it's in this current environment, it's almost impossible. What we do is we've got internal training available for drivers that after X number of documented hours or miles with doubles, we'll qualify them in LCVs. We've got drivers in our Corning Relay, in Boise, in Reno, and Medford that are all, and Pasco, Washington, that are all LCV certifiers. So they'll actually go out, they'll take a driver out with them, they'll run with them. Usually it's a double-pronged process. The first day or 2, they'll actually ride together. And then the 3rd trip is usually they'll follow. They'll try to match up a couple of sets of loads and have them follow. So we have a checklist and a fairly robust training program or monitoring program. But it's as far as finding somebody that walks into your office right now and wants a job, well, I'd like to see how that's happening.
When you look at the safety, triples versus the rest of your fleet, how do triples stack up?
Proportionally much better, simply because there's not that many of them, and we have very few incidents involving them. We haven't had any we have not had any accidents that are the result of the fact there's a 3rd trailer. We've had accidents involving triples, I'll be honest with you, but that is not because of the fact there's a 3rd trailer.
Not preventable from the driver.
That, or there could be other factors. Yeah, the third trailer has not been, to the best of my knowledge, the issue.
Well, in terms of emissions and saving pavement and really reducing the exposure to accidents, because you actually have fewer trucks on the road. Having more productive trucks, something that we have, here in the Silver State, here throughout, not all the West, but a big portion of the West, now I think is a good thing, something we want to, keep seeing, and see that expansion of what it does in terms of fewer emissions is a fantastic thing. Reducing those number of trips and
Absolutely.
therefore accidents.
Especially with less drivers, you need to do more with less, and LCVs is a good way to at least bridge some of that gap. I mean, there's other ways to do it too, but at least for the LTL industry, that's the biggest factor. Because we are not probably going to be very, what's the word? Autonomous vehicles are not going to be terribly beneficial to us. I don't see them allowing autonomous vehicles to pull triples. I don't see them going into areas of difficult navigation, like, for example, going up to Boise. You've got several grades. You've got those canyons between Burns Junction and the state line. So I think my industry will, at least for the initial rollout, if autonomous trucking does come to be, we will still not be benefiting from that. We will still have to have drivers because of our irregular routes and the fact we we have drivers that leave and drop and pick trailers all night long.
Sure.
We have a Reno driver could go with 2 trailers to Sacramento, leave 1, go up to Corning, drop 1, go up to Redding, drop 2, and come back. An autonomous truck is not going to do that.
Hey, what's really great about this industry is, operations aren't ubiquitous across the board. They do change. It does depend on the customer, the company, where you're running.
Yep.
And we all use basically that same mechanism, the tractor and the trailer to move the freight. But hearing how you have different challenges, based on your customers and where you're operating, always fun. Hey, Tom, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate having you here today.
Thank you.
Sharing some of your thoughts, and we'll do this again.
Absolutely.
All right, hey, thank you very much. And thank you guys for watching and listening. If you have any suggestions, please email me, pje@nevadatrucking.com. You can send me a direct message on Twitter, PJE_NV Trucks, or give us a call here at the Nevada Trucking Association office. Love to hear from you. And once again, thank you very much. Safe travels.